This is At a Loss, a podcast which is based around a series of conversations that look at what is it to live fully with grief? What is it to live a rich life when death has made its presence felt? I'm Timothy Giles. I'm a funeral celebrant, and I have this remarkable privilege because of that work to spend time meeting people who have a comfort with knowing and learning or even figuring out how to live fully alongside grief. People like Trish Guttenbell. Kia ora, Trish.
Kia ora.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
So, married to Jason, 4 children,
Yes.
life's rocking along, cancer diagnosis, terminal, 9 months,
Yes.
and 9 months later you're a widow. You knew it was coming, but when you became a widow, surprise!
Oh, yeah. It was a surprise. Nothing prepares you for that loss. Even though I had known that it was coming down the road and, you know, Jason had about 9 to 10 months to live, like I said, nothing can prepare you for that.
I'm surprised to hear that, because did you think that you knew what was coming?
I don't know that. I certainly, no.
Okay.
No.
You're not unfamiliar.
Not until it happened.
You're not unfamiliar with grief, though, right?
No, I'm not unfamiliar. I've had loss in my life, my father, my brother, my sister. There's been a lot of death in my family, but nothing prepared me for the loss of my husband. That was just the worst that ever could happen. But it wasn't until he died that then I was in this overwhelming transition of becoming a widow.
Overwhelming how?
It's overwhelming in that, okay, so you're dealing with the grief and all that, as you know,
Or not dealing with
and
it, possibly.
you're grieving, and you've got children that are grieving. So it's not just you, and so on a daily basis, you've got. I have, as in my case, I had 4 kids, and I was grieving myself, and then trying to comfort them and be strong for them. That was really difficult, and then all the losses that come with being a widow. The impact of that is, financial, physical. My physical health, financial was huge, and the massive change in your relationships with family and friends.
How so in terms of differently from... Because, losing a sister, a brother, a father, those are really huge losses that devastate people.
Yes.
You're familiar with grief, you're familiar with loss, and you're familiar with how relationships change from those, right? And they do. But losing your husband, more so.
Way more so. I lost my best friend, my husband, my, my children's father, and he was a main income earner. It's a really unique loss, which is what I call it, and there's what I call secondary losses that we have to deal with, that people may not realise widows have to deal with.
I want to come back to what secondary losses is, but first of all, you're really motivated to talk to widows.
Yes.
Right? Like, I really admire that you're having this conversation, and in each of the conversations that we've had, you've been really clear it's widows, and widows need this conversation.
Yes, because when I became a widow, I had no clue that this is all the stuff a widow has to deal with. It just was like bam in my face, like, you know, financial, your health suffers, you've got children to take care of, and your day-to-day life doesn't stop, and you've got a mountain of legal and paperwork and to tidy up, and you know, you imagine all the financial stuff, bills, and just the day-to-day, and then it's just overwhelming, the transition.
So where did you? And it's been 2 years.
2 years since Jason passed away.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were overwhelmed. What did you do to cope? Where did you go first of all? And did anything
That
help?
was what I found is I started to. So I had only taken a month off, and then I had to go back to work because financially I needed to work. So for that in itself, just not being able to take enough time to take care of myself had an impact on my health. But then I started to see that I needed to find people that could understand me. I found that when I was speaking to family or friends, that I'd either really hold back what I wanted to say because it was such an awkward conversation. And I get that grief is not something that we're taught how to help people with, right? And especially in my case, being a widow, people aren't going to get. You're not going to get what it's like for a widow unless you are one, right? I mean, you can empathise, but so I found those conversations awkward, and I discovered early that I didn't feel comfortable talking to just anybody about, you know, my grief and what it felt like, and the anger and the it was just really hard to bring it up with people. So I started looking online on just Google, and it's like, okay, there's got to be some groups out there that I can go to and get support from people who actually can understand where I'm coming from, instead of just have, you know, a blank face or people avoiding me. That's how I felt. That whether that's true, I don't know, but that's just how I felt. And so I discovered early on that there's people I can't really talk to about this because it's not fair on them. They just don't get it. It's really awkward. And so I started looking, and I found there was nothing in Auckland or New Zealand. I couldn't find there was grief counselling.
Yeah, and there's also a lot of grief groups.
Yeah, and grief groups, but no, that I needed to find something specific with widows. I wanted to hear from another widow how she was dealing with. How was she dealing with anything, with helping her children grieve? How was she dealing with going back to work? How was she dealing with the money side of things? And how did you deal with relationships and in-laws, and setting boundaries now that you're the head of the household, and before it was your husband, now it's you, and you've got to step up and be a leader. And so I wanted to hear from a widow. So there wasn't much out there, and when I did Google, it was widows dating sites and things like that, and I thought surely there's something out there but I couldn't find it. And then I thought, well, okay, perhaps I need to look bigger, go out global. So I started looking overseas, and that was where I found Modern Widows Club and Carolyn Moore, and that's when I joined that group and found them. And because I was looking to move forward in my life at that point, I acknowledge I was still grieving, and I was in some Facebook groups. So I had joined a couple of one particular Facebook group as soon as Jason had passed away, and I found that really helpful.
A grief-based
It was a Facebook grief group for it was actually specific for widows, and it was helpful in the beginning while I was grieving, but then I found, I guess when I started to move along and a few months into it, I mean, that's still early, but I found that it just wasn't helpful anymore. It was quite negative, and I felt I was stuck. And I was at the point where I wanted to get unstuck and move away from the grieving stuff and go, okay, I need to move my life forward, because if I stay here, I could really see that I was going to go down the rabbit hole and just I was becoming quite negative and just not coping. I was still drinking and drinking to cope every night.
I'm familiar with that one.
I was, 2 nights was becoming 3 and 4, and I just thought, this isn't helping. And I was starting to be quite negative toward other people, and there's just a lot I couldn't be with or be around.
People you couldn't be with, and things you couldn't be with
Things
as
I
well,
couldn't be around. Oh yeah,
yourself?
I couldn't be around couples in my family.
That's quite limiting.
Yeah, I didn't want to be around people that were in a couple because I'd lost Jason. I was just really grieving it. That made me uncomfortable. And trying to deal with relationships, it was just... And then being in that Facebook group, I just found I was at the point where I needed to now jump off it.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it had helped me. It had served, and I'd got a lot out of it, and I appreciated that. But I was just ready to move forward in my life. Did
you know what that meant? Like, move forward did you have a clear idea of, this is what I'm moving forward to?
No.
As you're talking to me, you're moving your hands, physically forward into space. But you didn't know what moving forward was. It was...
No, I had no. That's why I was looking for a widows group. But I was looking for something that was uplifting and positive and inspiring, that wasn't going to keep me stuck.
Because you couldn't generate that yourself at the time, right?
No, I couldn't.
But you wanted it.
I wanted it. I knew that's what I needed in order to be a leader for my children.
Have you got it now?
Yes, I have been developing and growing myself in the past 18 months. And that's not by accident. It's through doing the work to make myself better, to learn and grow from, the courses I've done and the people I've met through Modern Widows Club and all those resources that they have. And
it's about generating something other than the stuck in the feelings that that were familiar, and generating what sort of feelings or thoughts is it that you are building now?
Rebuilding my life, because everything after my husband passed away, it was like someone had just ripped out my whole future. So I was standing, I was just standing over a cliff, going, "Where do I go now? What now? What do I do? What now?" So it was like no future. When I was in the first beginning stages and I was grieving, honestly, people would say to me, "Oh, you will," or I'd read it in the grief groups, where people who would be like 5, 10, 15 years down the track, whatever, "Oh, you will get better, your days will get better," whatever. I just did not believe that. I was like, no way, you do not know where I am. It was really hard to believe that, but I took faith. So I just thought, okay, well, I'm gonna have faith that what they're saying is true, and just work through the grief and allow myself to grieve. And
are you still doing it on faith?
I do believe in having faith, but I'm also actually working hard at rebuilding my life for me and my children. So it's not like I say, not by accident. It's not.
Yeah, you're not a passenger in this.
No,
right?
It's been a journey of discovery, of accepting myself as a widow. So that was a big part. Was for me to move forward. The big transformation or step was to actually accept where I was, because I did not accept it. I did not want it.
Well, you didn't want it.
I didn't want it.
And why would you want it?
Yeah.
And I guess I want, if you accept it, it's almost like you're going, this is fine then, and it's not fine.
Yeah, it was not fine at all. But I could see that I did need to accept where I was at and accept myself and be able to say, I am a widow. My husband died, and I can now rebuild my future and create what I want. But it took, yeah, that was the day that I could actually really move forward.
When you
accepted it.
could articulate to yourself, I am a widow.
When I actually said, yeah, I am a widow, and I was okay with it.
Ah, so you'd said it previously and not been okay with it, and then something happened when you're like...
Yeah, I guess it's like owning something. It was like, this is my life. This is, I accepted it that day, and yeah, I had never imagined before that I could be happy with my future. I thought there was no more future. My life was just going to be average, and I was we're not in a good place then, but when I accepted it, I could finally go, okay, what now? Let's move. What can I have for my life?
Okay, and what can you have for your life?
Well, I believe anything that I want to create for my life.
Can I ask if others have to adjust too, don't they, around you?
Yeah, I guess, yeah. Yeah, because I'm not the same person I was when my husband was here and when he died.
Well, life was easier and more joyful, and things were... So of course you're different, right?
Oh yeah, it's completely different. But I've also had to, but I'm different now too, and that's because I've been in a stage of growth.
Huh.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say in a stage of grief, but you
Growth.
finished it differently. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, not to say that the grief doesn't come back, and to be honest, it never goes away. It never goes. It comes up, and yeah, I'll be grieving sometimes, but I've just learned just to take it as it comes, and also that, it's something that you live with. You live with it, But what I've found is that it's not helpful for me to be stuck in that place all the time. So I know how to get myself out of it, and yeah. So.
We did one of these conversations with a woman called Maria Miller, who's a counsellor and a grief specialist within that. And she talks about, so I love her definition of grief. It's a really simple definition where she says grief is your response, your reaction to the loss of something that means a lot to you.
Yes.
Right? And the other thing that she talks about, is that she said, and I remembered it because you said grief doesn't go away. And she said grief is a hole. It's a big hole in your life.
Yeah.
And the hole never gets filled up. You manage to walk and work a life around that hole, and maybe you fence bits off, and then there's a bit that you come and you can sit and you can look into the hole, but you can actually move around and away from the hole. The hole's always there.
Yes, I like that. Yeah.
What do you like about that?
Because it's always there. The void is always there. There's not a day goes by I don't think about my husband. There's not a day that goes by where I keep myself busy and with things that I'm interested in, and with the children. But there's also their grief. They remind me as well. They bring it up too. So it's there numerous times throughout your day. But I still am getting on with my life. And just because I'm getting on with my life and being happy and joyful, finding joyful moments, doesn't mean I don't miss that person in my life. Do you know what I mean? It's always going to be there.
Well done. Because the pain is really evident, right? And the loss is really evident. And you didn't believe you could ever find a joyful moment again.
I didn't, not in the beginning. No, I didn't.
What's a joyful moment?
Just, being with my kids, joking and laughing, playing games, with them. just, hugging my children and poking fun at each other and, just being out in nature. That's another, what I've discovered is that love is everywhere. I don't think I knew this when I was married to Jason, and that even in my workplace, now I just see how you can just have fun. You can create fun anywhere, and I'd always been part of another, a couple, and I just enjoy people now more. I'm just having a laugh with a colleague at work, going, grabbing lunch together, and I just find joy. Those are good moments. Yeah.
We met immediately prior to the COVID lockdown, and you worked through because you're in an essential service. And something that struck me was you were highly motivated to do it, and it seemed to me that there was a reward in the doing of the work, unattached to the money, in actually there's a pleasure in there for you in that.
Yeah. It's like having a purpose, it's like a purpose, and it's I don't know. You can find joy in anything. You don't have to like everything you're doing, but you can find joy in it,
Sorry, I can find joy in something I don't like.
I believe so. Like, I don't like doing the dishes, but I'll put on my favourite music and I'll do the dishes while I'm listening to my favourite music or podcast or, So I think it's just how you look at it, eh? I mean, I'll gladly go into work over lockdown because it's my job. I respect that. I'm grateful to have a job and great colleagues and a great company to work for. And, I don't necessarily like the fact I have to go in, but I'll do it because, yeah.
It's quite remarkable to me, this conversation experience with you. And I want to get to kind of reflecting and looking back on what I've taken out of this conversation and honouring your aim, which is to speak to widows, right? And so that's actually probably what I've got most of all out of this, is that sense of, in being profoundly impacted by loss. And I have a friend who's just had a stroke recently, and she's really having a tough time because she can't talk to her children, she can't walk unaided, right? She was celebrating yesterday that she's cleaned her teeth herself for the first time. Now, that night, the message I get from her is expletive-ridden and angry, and that's where she's at, right? And what I've got from you is there are some joyful moments in there. Her anger's still going to come, and she's not going to be able to speak to her children for some time yet, right? She's got a lot of work to do, and who knows how it's going to turn out. But you have taught me about consciously creating hope, right? And consciously choosing moments of joy.
Yeah.
Which she did in that cleaning of her teeth. So, look, thank you for that. People are losing their jobs. People are losing relationships. There's all sorts of different loss that's going on for people, right? And you have this very profound one that you're speaking explicitly to. Thank you for doing so.
Thank you.
To speak explicitly to a widow who's listening to you, what does she or he as a widow, what do they need to get out of this conversation from you, do you think?
If you're in the early stages like I was, it may be hard to hear that things will get better, because I certainly didn't in the beginning, but that is true. Someone said it to me one day, once, that you get to a point where, and I thought this was a really good explanation, where when you think of that person, so when I'm thinking of Jason, crying isn't the first thing that comes up. And I really like that because I thought that, that's a great way of explaining it. And when you get there, then you know you are in a growth state, you are growing, and you've moved away from that grief, stress, and into growth. and because that really did happen for me. Yeah. In the beginning, it was all upset and sadness, but now when I think of him, I think of the fun times. I think of the amazing memories of trips we did together and things with our kids, and and for widows also that.
So just on that,
Yeah.
your eyes brighten in this moment.
Yeah.
Right, like your ahua, your energy, it's changed, it's shifted.
Because that can't be taken away. So you can go there anytime. Me and Jason have so many great memories of our 25 years together. That's never going away. That no one can take that away. And for widows especially, just to look out, look for support, because widows get widows, and people out there, we know what you're dealing with. Not necessarily what you're going through personally, but what you're dealing with. Yeah.
That's an interesting distinction. Not necessarily what you're going through, but what you're dealing with.
Yeah.
Could you just break that down for me a little?
Well, when I say not necessarily what you're going through, because that's a personal thing, like with you and your husband. So I don't know. Some widows may not have been in good situations with their husband. I don't know.
Which has a whole lot of other stuff that comes with it. Yeah.
Not what I just mean on the personal
Yes.
sense, that I don't know what her relationship is with her husband.
Yeah.
But what you're dealing with, I can say I do know, because the impact on your health as a widow and your finances, your emotional, your emotions, relationships, in those areas. Taking care of children, if the children are involved. The social change. Yeah.
I wonder if we might have to have another conversation sometime, Trish. Like, this has gone so quickly.
Is it finished?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Like, this is,
So good. You're awesome.
So this conversation here is a part of our podcast called At a Loss. If you'd like to be part of it, and you would like to give feedback on a conversation that you hear here, if there is a theme or a topic you'd like to bring up with us, then please, feedback welcome, input really, really welcome. I'm the host. My name is Timothy Giles. You can email me, tg@ataloss.co.nz. Also our producer, Karen ataloss.co.nz, and there's some information at the website. There'll be a bio about you, Trish, that we'll have to write in the next day or two within there. So this continues, and I think that there's a bit more, isn't there, to talk about?
There is.
It goes so fast.
Yeah.
All right, and maybe
Thank you.
grief doesn't go so fast, but it does go, to some extent.
Yes.